This is... We always talk about, Penny Boardman should pull out and all the rest of it. She's not going to make it onto the ballot paper, is she?
It was decided, I think, as early as Saturday morning that Rishi Sunak is the next Prime Minister. Boris didn't have the numbers, despite the bluster. We know Boris is very good at bluster. Penny Boardman's got about 25 names. I don't know why she hasn't already pulled out. She's obviously, if she can get the numbers higher, she'll be hoping she can get a bigger job out of Rishi Sunak. But it's Rishi Sunak by a country mile. It's a coronation. It's probably the best thing, so we can get on with it, because this country is in a terrible mess. And Rishi Sunak can go into number 10 this afternoon, reshuffle the cabinet, and get on with governing.
Yeah.
For some of the cabinet, this is a bit awkward because they threw their hat in with someone. It might be Sunak or Liz Truss, and then Boris Johnson, and it's all fallen apart. So who actually are Rishi's real allies?
Well, his people like Steve Barclay, who was... what was he in the last... Oh, God, they've all changed their jobs so often.
Oh, no, it's impossible to keep up.
It's hard to keep up. But I think a good ally of his is Jeremy Hunt, so I would be surprised if Jeremy Hunt doesn't stay as Chancellor. Dominic Raab may come back. He was a Foreign Secretary and then he was a Justice Secretary. He's a big supporter of Rishi Sunak. But even people like Liam Fox on the traditional Thatcherite right of the party, big Sunak supporters, because they see Sunak as a calming influence, somebody who won't spook the market. Tell you who's in a really big bind. Nadeem Sahawi. Now, he's the Cabinet Office Minister. He's like the troubleshooter, goes around every department sorting things out. So he was made Chancellor of the Exchequer by Boris when Boris was desperately trying to save his government. And then he put the knife in Boris just before Boris fell on his sword, backing Boris to the hilt yesterday. 9 o'clock last night, an online article appears on The Telegraph from Nadeem Sahawi saying why Boris is the man for the job. 2 minutes later, Boris pulls out. And 5 minutes later, Nadeem Sahawi says, Rishi Sunak, he's the man for the job. I think his cabinet career might be over.
Which is a shame, because he was vaccines minister, wasn't
he? He was very
good. Where he was absolutely lauded.
He was very good, but just a bit too much somersaulting here.
Yeah.
And I think Boris also was exacting revenge for the fact that he pulled the rug from under his feet when he'd made him Chancellor.
Yeah.
So,
revenge is a dish best stinking cold.
Oh, isn't it? Isn't it just?
Boris Johnson never actually officially said, I'm going for it, but has very much officially said, I'm out. Staging for a comeback later on?
It's interesting, Rosie, because the Tories cannot possibly change Prime Minister again before the next general election. So Rishi Sunak leads the Tories into the next election. Looking at the polls, they're going to lose, and lose pretty badly. I can't see Boris Johnson as a leader of the opposition.
No.
It's not his... He wouldn't be cut out for that. You don't get checkers, you don't get the perks, you don't get the motor dispatch riders, you don't get all the perks. And he's also going to have a huge task in holding on to his seat. It's a marginal seat in West London, majority of about 6,000. Labour will throw everything at that seat to try and get him out. So I suspect we've seen the last... that was the last hurrah of Boris. He can now go back to America and earn lots of money, making speeches, £150,000 a time. I saw one fee, $300,000. Look, if Theresa May gets £100,000 for a speech, and you'd pay $100,000 not to hear her speak because she's so boring, Boris Johnson's easily going to get more. So I think probably that's it from Boris Johnson, which is a great shame because he's one of the greatest political talents we've seen.
Well, and yet you don't think he was right for coming back now, did you? I mean, you did. So what does this mean for, like, all of this, right?
Yeah.
Which is essentially all people saying, I will never vote Tory again now that it's Rishi.
Yeah, well, you'll get that, but there were also some Tory MPs who would have resigned the whip. There'd have been problems in the parliamentary party because a lot of them who were standing down would just simply say they couldn't work with him. It was probably too soon. He only stood down, 3 months ago? The wounds are still there. You hear people who lost people during COVID, didn't get to see their husbands, wives, family, while there were parties going on at number 10. And still, Stephen, don't forget, we've got this Privileges Committee inquiry into whether Boris misled Parliament as to whether parties took place and whether the rules are broken. That committee could recommend he's kicked out of Parliament. By-election could be all over then. Imagine if that had happened when he was Prime Minister. Oh, my God.